You didn't lose because of a bad RNG. You didn't lose because the shop betrayed you. You didn't lose because the boss blind was unfair. You lost because you never choose your multiplier. Balatro doesn't punish you loudly. It doesn't collapse your run in a dramatic explosion. It doesn't scream that something is wrong. It lets you survive. It lets you clear blinds. It lets you believe you're building something. And that's why the first mistake is so hard to see. Because nothing breaks when you make it. Nothing collapses immediately. Nothing feels incorrect. The numbers still go up. The blinds still fall. The run still moves forward. But forward movement is not the same as acceleration. And Balatro is a game about acceleration. The first mistake wasn't a bad hand. It wasn't a weak joker. It wasn't even a wrong purchase. It was a moment much earlier. A moment where the game quietly asks you what you are building, and you refused to answer. Welcome to The First Mistake, a channel about the moments games don't explain, but always remember. The small decisions, the quiet assumptions, the mistakes that decide the run long before the ending. Balatro looks chaotic. You're given random jokers, random tags, random blinds, random shops, random packs. It looks like adaptation is the skill. It looks like reacting to what appears is the key. But Balatro is not about reacting, it's about constructing a compounding engine. The randomness only decides what materials you receive. It does not decide whether you build a machine or a collection. And most failed runs are collections. They contain good pieces. They contain useful tools. They contain small bonuses. But they do not contain a structure. And without structure, exponential systems collapse. Balatro's scoring system escalates aggressively. Each ante raises the requirement. Each blind increases expectation. And the growth curve is not linear, it's exponential. That means if your output grows steadily, you are losing. If your output grows gradually, you are behind. If your output grows explosively, you are stable. That is the hidden rule. The game does not tell you this directly, but the math does. There are only three real pillars in Balatro: chips, multiplier, synergy density. Chips give you a floor. They ensure your weakest hands still produce value. Multiplier gives you a ceiling. It amplifies your strongest combinations. But synergy density. Synergy density determines whether those two multiply each other or remain isolated. If chips grow without multiplier scaling, you plateau. If multiplier grows without consistent triggers, you fluctuate. But if both grow together within a focused engine, you compound. Compounding is the difference between surviving and dominating. Most players look at individual numbers. They evaluate jokers in isolation. They ask, is this strong right now? But that is the wrong question. The correct question is, does this increase my slope? Because slope determines your future, and future determines survival. The first mistake is asking the wrong question. Let's talk about the shop. You open it in ante 1. You see 3 jokers. One improves pairs. One gives small multiplier to high card. One adds flat chips. None of them are extraordinary. None define a direction. So you choose the safe one. The one that works with many hands. The one that keeps your options open. You tell yourself you're staying adaptable. You tell yourself it's too early to commit. You tell yourself better opportunities will appear. And maybe they will. But every ante you delay commitment reduces the number of compounding cycles you have left. Exponential growth is time sensitive. Early slope matters disproportionately. If you begin scaling in ante 1, you have 7 scaling windows. If you begin in ante 3, you have 5. If you begin in ante 4, you have 3 meaningful ones. And exponential curves are not forgiving about starting late. Flexibility feels intelligent because it avoids regret. Commitment feels dangerous because it risks locking into something suboptimal. But suboptimal direction early is often stronger than optimal direction late, because time multiplies everything. The illusion is this. You think keeping doors open preserves power. In reality, it preserves indecision, and indecision wastes time. There is a specific moment in most losing runs. You don't notice it immediately. There's no warning, no dramatic music, no flashing indicator. You still clear the blind. You still score enough. But something subtle changes. You need 2 hands instead of 1. You need 3 instead of 2. Your strongest combination barely clears the requirement. And that is the moment the curve flattens. Not the moment you lose. The moment you stop accelerating. Exponential systems don't punish weakness instantly. They punish stagnation gradually. A flat curve survives early. It fails late. And because the failure happens later, the mistake feels recent. But it wasn't. It happened when you decided to stay flexible. Let's simplify the math. Imagine 2 runs. In run A, your multiplier grows by a small amount every ante. In run B, your multiplier doubles in early ante and compounds from there. At first, both runs look similar. Both clear blinds. Both produce stable scores. But exponential growth is multiplicative. If run B gains slope earlier, even by a small margin, the margin compounds. By ante 4, the difference is visible. By ante 6, it is overwhelming. Run A is working harder. Run B is overshooting. Overshooting is critical. Overshooting gives you margin. Margin allows mistakes. Margin absorbs variance. Flat Growth leaves no buffer, and without buffer, variance kills you. Balatro is not just about hitting the threshold, it is about exceeding it consistently. Only slope gives you excess. Let's walk through a typical failed run. Anti-1. You buy a neutral joker that boosts multiple hand types slightly. You skip a flash enhancer because you don't want to lock in. You take a cheap booster because it feels universally useful. Anti-2. You add a conditional multiplier that works sometimes. You have one general multiplier, one cheap booster, one conditional enhancer. Nothing conflicts. Nothing defines identity. Anti-3. You notice you're slightly underperforming. You still clear blinds, but not comfortably. You consider committing, but you think it's too late. Wait for a stronger signal. Anti-4. You finally find a joker that strongly supports one direction. You buy it. But now you only have 3 antis left. 3 scaling windows. And exponential system punish late acceleration. Your new engine does not have enough time to compound. By NT6, you are fighting the threshold instead of surpassing it. And when you lose, it feels like the boss blind was the cause. But the cause was NT1, the moment you avoided identity. Why do we do this? Why do we avoid early commitment? Because preserving options feels rational. It feels like strategic flexibility. It feels like minimizing risk. But in a compounding system, risk behaves differently. Early commitment is high variance but high growth. Late commitment is low variance but low growth. And low growth is in exponential scaling equals eventual collapse. There is a cognitive bias at play. We overvalue optionality. We treat open possibilities as stored power, but possibilities are not power. Execution is power. An unopened door is not progress, it is potential, and potential does not scale. When you commit early, something subtle happens. Your deck changes. Your decision making accelerates. Your shop evaluation becomes simpler. You no longer evaluate every joker equally. You filter instantly. If it reinforces your direction, it stays. If it doesn't, it goes. That filtering increases density. Density increases reliability. Reliability increases expected output. Expected output wins blinds. The flexible run constantly re-evaluates. The committed run constantly reinforces. Reinforcement compounds. Re-evaluation stalls. Now imagine the same start. NT1. You see a flash enhancer. You take it. You sell the neutral joker. You ignore pair bonuses. You narrow immediately. NT2. You find another effect that triggers on flash. You take it. You skip a generally strong multiplier because it doesn't reinforce your engine. NT3. Your hands already overshoot requirements. Not massively, but noticeably. NT4. Your multiplier begins compounding, not because of rarity, but because of density. NT5. You are no longer chasing thresholds, you are exceeding them. By NT6, the boss blind is not a threat, it is a confirmation. And the only difference between those two runs was timing. Not luck, not shop quality. Timing. Early slope. Early identity. Early narrowing. Many games reward adaptability. Balatro rewards specialization, because specialization amplifies interactions. If 5 jokers trigger on the same event, the multiplier effect stacks geometrically. If 5 jokers trigger on 5 different events, they activate inconsistently. Inconsistency reduces expected growth, and reduced growth is an exponential curve, is fatal. Balatro is a game of concentrated synergy, not distributed utility. There is a threshold in most failed runs, not a visible one, not a marked one, but a structural one. It's the moment where your multiplier is too low to catch up, even if you find something powerful. Players believe they can pivot late. They believe a strong joker in anti-5 can save the run. Sometimes it can, but only if there is an existing engine to plug into. If there is no engine, a strong joker is just a spark without fuel. Late acceleration without foundation is cosmetic. It looks strong for a moment, but it doesn't sustain. This is the point of no return. When your curve is too flat, when your close rate is too shallow, when time has run out for compounding. And the tragedy is this. You don't feel it when you cross that point. You only feel it when the boss blind ends the run. But the decision was made much earlier, in a shop, with a quiet hesitation. Flexibility protects your ego. If you never fully commit, you can never be fully wrong. If you stay adaptable, you can always blame randomness. If you avoid identity, you avoid responsibility. Commitment is uncomfortable because it exposes you. It says, this is what I am building, and if it fails clearly. Flexibility allows ambiguity. Ambiguity protects pride, but ambiguity destroys slope. Balatro doesn't punish pride, it punishes delay. There is a painful realization in many runs. Around NT4, you finally see what you should have built. You finally recognize the synergy you ignored. You finally understand the multiplier you should have chosen. And you try to pivot. But pivoting requires time. And time has already compounded against you. This is the cruel mathematics of exponential systems. Clarity that arrives late is expensive, because growth is front-loaded. Early slope dominates late correction. And that is why the first mistake is so decisive. It happens before the consequences are visible. Survival feels good. Clearing blinds feels like progress, but survival is not momentum. Survival maintains position. Momentum increases position. Balatro demands momentum. If your run is built to survive, it will eventually fail. If your run is built to accelerate, it will dominate. That distinction is subtle, and most players miss it, because survival and growth look similar in early antes. Only later does the difference widen, and by then it's too late to change. Commitment does not mean ignoring new information. It means filtering new information through identity. If you are building Flash and a joker appears that amplifies something else, you evaluate it differently. Not by raw strength, but by structural reinforcement. That is strategic commitment. It is not rigidity. It is clarity. Clarity increases speed. Speed increases compounding cycles. Compounding cycles determine the ceiling. Picture the two runs again. In one, every shop feels complex. Every decision feels heavy. Every joker feels potentially important. In the other, most shops are simple. Most jokers are irrelevant. Only a few matter. The second run feels easier. Not because it got lucky, but because it reduced noise. Noise obscures slope. Clarity amplifies it. Balatro rewards clarity, not possibility. The real lesson of Balatro is not about poker hands. It is not about which joker is strongest. It is not about perfect shop management. It's about timing your commitment, choosing direction early, narrowing deliberately, accepting risk before certainty, because certainty arrives too late. You don't lose because of a bad draw. You lost because you postponed identity. And in exponential game, postponement compounds against you. In Balatro, the multiplier is not just a number. It is a declaration. It is a commitment to slope. It is a refusal to remain average. And not choosing it is choosing to remain flat. And flat curves don't survive exponential systems. They fade quietly, inevitably. If you enjoyed this channel is about the moments games don't explain. But always remember the small decisions, the quiet assumptions, the first mistakes. This was the first mistake. See you before the next one.